The galaxy had known peace for centuries, thanks to the powerful and peaceful consortium of alien species, CAS. They had built a network that spanned across countless star systems, bringing harmony to the different species. For the most part, life in the galaxy was stable, but not without its challenges. Many worlds had lost their once great civilizations, and some, like the Xorethians, were on the verge of extinction. The Xorethians were a once mighty alien species known for their advanced technology and vast empire. However, over time, their empire crumbled, and they were left with little but a dying world. Their planet had been torn apart by reckless mining, war, and environmental damage. The once thriving cities were now abandoned, and the planet's atmosphere was slowly becoming uninhabitable. The Xorethians' desperation was growing, and they realized they needed help. Fast. In a final act of desperation, the Xorethian leaders sent out a call for help. They reached out to the CAS, the peaceful alliance of alien species that had the technology to help them. But the CAS had never faced a problem like this before. Their peaceful ways and advanced methods of dealing with crises had always been effective in the past. But this time, even they were uncertain if they could save the Xorethians. The CAS officials held an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. They knew that helping the Xorethians could change the course of galactic history. If they succeeded, the galaxy would see them as a truly powerful and kind force. But if they failed, they risked losing the trust of their allies and allowing one of the most advanced species to collapse into nothingness. Despite their uncertainty, the CAS had one idea: humans. Known for their unpredictable nature and survival instincts, humans were the only species that had faced challenges and survived on a Deathworld, Earth. A Deathworld was a planet where life was not only dangerous, but actively trying to kill the inhabitants. On Earth, humans had fought against everything from deadly predators to extreme environments, and they had come out stronger every time. The CAS had long been wary of Earth. Humanity's aggressive nature and tendency to solve problems by force made the other species nervous. But the humans' ability to survive in the harshest conditions was something the CAS could no longer ignore. They knew that if anyone could save the Xorethians, it would be the humans. After much debate, the CAS decided to send a message to Earth, asking for humanity's help. They made it clear that they needed the most skilled and experienced humans available, people who could survive in an environment where even the most advanced technology would fail. The humans, led by General Maya Kinkid, had a reputation for being tough, clever, and fearless. They had survived everything thrown at them, and now they were being asked to do the impossible: save a dying planet and a dying species. The challenge was unlike any they had faced before, and no one knew if they would succeed. But one thing was certain: the Xorethians had no other choice. They had to trust the Deathworlders and hope that humanity's power of survival could rise to the occasion. The message from the Consortium of Alien Species, CAS, arrived on Earth like a shockwave. The leaders of the United Nations, along with the world's top scientists and military commanders, gathered in a secure facility to discuss the urgent request. The CAS had asked for humanity's help. The Xorethians, once a powerful alien race, were now on the verge of extinction, and only the humans could possibly save them. The leaders of Earth were both shocked and unsure. They had never been involved in galactic matters on this scale before. Would helping an alien species cause more harm than good? And could humanity really help in a situation like this? General Maya Kinkade, the leader of Earth's most elite military unit, was the first to speak. She had seen her fair share of life-or-death situations, but the idea of leaving Earth to travel across the stars was something entirely different. However, she knew the decision was not just about military strategy. It was about humanity's survival instinct, the very thing that had allowed Earth to thrive in the harshest of environments. If there was any species in the galaxy capable of surviving the Xorethians' dying planet, it was humanity. Maya's team was soon selected, a group of Deathworlders, handpicked for their extraordinary skills in survival, tactics, and problem-solving. Along with Maya, there was Dr. Leo Price, a biologist with a deep understanding of ecosystems, a former war hero named Alex Darnell, who had fought in multiple planetary conflicts, and a tech genius, Kira Voss, who could build anything from scraps of metal and broken parts. Each member of the team brought something vital to the table, but they all had one thing in common: their ability to survive when the odds were stacked against them. The humans were briefed on the details of the mission. The Thorithians' homeworld had become a toxic wasteland, plagued by dangerous creatures, unstable weather, and a dying environment. The CAS believed they could fix the technological aspects of the planet's collapse, but they were unsure how to restore balance to the ecosystem. That's where the humans came in. The planet needed someone who understood how to survive in extreme conditions, how to adapt and thrive where others would fail. As the team prepared for their journey, they could sense the weight of what they were about to do. The fate of an entire species rested on their shoulders. Maya looked at her team and saw the same determination in their eyes that she felt. This wasn't just a mission. It was a test of humanity's spirit, a test of whether humans could rise to the challenge and prove that they were more than just survivors of their own planet. The journey to the Thorithian homeworld was long, and the team had to travel in stasis pods to endure the harsh conditions of space. As they approached the planet, the signs of its decline became more apparent. The planet's surface was cracked and scarred, with large patches of wasteland, and no signs of life. The Thorithian cities, once gleaming with advanced technology, now lay abandoned, their towers crumbling under the weight of time. The Thorithian leaders waited for them on the surface, their faces full of fear and hope. They had seen the humans' reputation: brutal, resourceful, and fiercely determined. And they knew this was their last chance. The humans were their only hope for survival. As Maya and her team disembarked, they were greeted by a world on the edge of death. The Thorithians pleaded for help, their voices trembling with desperation. But the humans, though moved, remained focused. This was no time for sympathy. The challenge ahead would test them all in ways they could not yet imagine. The moment the human team set foot on the Thorithian planet, the weight of the situation became clear. The air was thick with pollution, and the ground beneath their boots was cracked and uneven. The Thorithians, once proud and powerful, now appeared fragile and desperate. Their civilization had once controlled vast stretches of space, but now their planet was dying, and they had no answers. General Maya Kincaid stood tall, surveying the scene. Her strong, sharp eyes took in every detail, analyzing the environment with military precision. She had seen countless battlefields, but this was different. This was survival on a scale unlike anything humanity had faced before. Her team was about to face the most dangerous challenge of their lives, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Failure would mean the end of the Thorithian species. She turned to her team, knowing that every member brought something unique to the table. Dr. Leo Price, the biologist, was the first to speak. He crouched down, inspecting the soil. His face showed concern. "The environment here is unstable," he said. "It's worse than we thought. The radiation levels are dangerously high, and the ecosystem has completely collapsed. We'll need to act fast if we want to help these people." Maya nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We'll do what we can," she replied. "But first, we need to gather intel. Kira, Alex, I need you to set up our base camp and get the comms up and running. We need to stay in contact with the CAS and keep them updated on our progress." Kira Voss, the tech expert, gave a sharp nod. "I'm on it. I'll have the communication system online in no time." Alex Darnell, the former soldier, was already moving. He had served in dozens of wars, and his instincts told him that the Thorithians' world was more dangerous than it looked. "I'll set up perimeter defenses," he said. "There's no telling what kind of predators are lurking in the shadows." As the team went to work, Maya remained focused on the bigger picture. The Thorithians' pleas for help echoed in her mind, But she knew that their survival wasn't just about fixing their planet's technology. It was about teaching them how to survive, how to adapt to a world that no longer cared for their advanced machines and perfect systems. Dr. Price, meanwhile, was already analyzing the local flora and fauna, looking for any signs of life. He quickly realized that the planet's ecosystem had suffered so much damage that most of the native species had either died off or mutated into dangerous, unpredictable creatures. This was a planet that was constantly fighting back against everything that tried to live on it. "We're going to need more than just technology to survive here," Dr. Price said, his voice grim. "We need to rebuild the ecosystem from the ground up." Maya crossed her arms. "And we'll do it. The Exorithians need to learn that survival isn't about control. It's about adapting to whatever the world throws at you." She looked around at her team. Each one of them was ready, willing to fight, and determined to succeed. They were Earth's finest Deathworlders who had survived the harshest conditions on their own planet. Now they would prove that humanity could not only survive in the toughest environments, but help others do the same. With that, Maya made her decision. They would teach the Exorithians how to survive. The planet might be dying, but humanity was about to show them what it meant to live. As Maya Kincaid and her team moved deeper into the Exorithian world, the devastation grew clearer. The cities, once shining with advanced technology, were now nothing more than ruins. Tall, majestic buildings that had once stood proudly were now leaning and crumbling. The streets were empty, the air thick with dust, and the smell of decay hung in the atmosphere. The Exorithians had once believed their technology could protect them from anything, but now they saw the price of ignoring nature's power. Maya led the team through the wreckage, her sharp eyes scanning the surroundings. She could feel the weight of the planet's history pressing down on her. The Exorithians had once been proud, but now they were broken. She couldn't help but think of the Earth's own struggles. Humans, too, had once made mistakes, ignoring the balance of nature in their pursuit of progress. But they had learned, adapted, and found a way to survive. Maya knew the Exorithians needed to learn the same lesson, or they would vanish just like the ruined cities around them. "Where do we start?" Dr. Leo Price asked as he surveyed the broken landscape. He knelt by a pile of fallen metal, which had once been part of a sophisticated power grid. "The environmental damage here is worse than I thought. The radiation levels are off the charts. If we don't fix this soon, there won't be any hope for the planet." Maya thought for a moment before responding. "We're not here to fix everything with technology. We need to teach the Exorithians how to survive in a world that's already been damaged. They have relied too much on their machines and their perfect systems. They forgot how to live with nature." Alex Darnell, the former soldier, had been silent up until now. He studied the terrain ahead and finally spoke, his voice low. "Maya's right. The Exorithians have forgotten how to adapt. Their technology can't save them here, and neither can ours. It's all about survival instincts, something they've lost." The team pushed forward, each member seeing the destruction differently. Kira Voss, the tech expert, was already working on a solution. "I'm trying to get the comms up and running," she said, tapping away at her portable device. "But I don't think we can rely on technology to get us out of this mess. We'll need to make do with what's here." As they moved deeper into the ruins, they discovered more evidence of the Exorithians' mistakes. Large machines, once used for resource extraction, now lay abandoned, covered in rust and cracked metal. They had stripped the land of its resources until there was nothing left. The Exorithians had not just failed to adapt, they had destroyed the very thing they needed to survive: their environment. Dr. Price knelt beside a broken tree that had somehow managed to survive in the harsh conditions. "This is what we need to focus on," he said. "Life still exists here, even in the ruins. We need to understand how it's surviving, how it's adapting. If we can learn from that, maybe we can help the Exorithians." Maya looked around at her team. They were all ready to face the challenges ahead. This wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be quick. But Maya knew that humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to survive, to adapt, and to rebuild. The Exorethians would learn that lesson, and perhaps in the end, it would save them. "Let's get to work," Maya said, her voice filled with determination. "We're here to teach them how to live again." As days passed, Maya and her team worked tirelessly to understand the Xorethian planet and its failing ecosystem. Every step forward felt like a battle, not just against the land, but against the history of a species that had forgotten the importance of balance. But the humans were different. They had spent their lives surviving the toughest conditions imaginable. They had fought Earth's wild animals, endured violent weather, and adapted to every hardship thrown at them. This was not new to them. It was their way of life. Maya looked out over the ruins of the Xorethian city, now part of the wild landscape that stretched as far as she could see. The humans had set up their base camp on the outskirts, using their knowledge to make the environment more manageable. They had already begun fortifying the area, creating barriers to keep dangerous wildlife out, and building shelters from the remains of the crumbling city. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Dr. Leo Price had taken charge of studying the local flora and fauna, and he was learning more every day. He had already identified several plants that, though mutated, still held the potential to help restore the soil. "There's life here," he said one morning, looking at a strange, glowing plant. "It's tough, but it's still alive. If we can harness the power of these plants, we might be able to start reversing the damage." Maya nodded. "That's the first step. We can use nature's strength to rebuild." Alex Darnell, the former soldier, was already organizing the next phase of their efforts. He had been scouting the area for signs of the dangerous creatures that roamed the planet. The radiation had caused many of the animals to mutate into aggressive predators, but Alex wasn't worried. He had faced worse. He gathered the team together and briefed them on what they would need to do next. "We're going to start clearing the area," he said. "We'll create safe zones for the Xorethians and get their people to start helping. We're not just here to fix their problems. We're here to show them how to survive." Kira Voss, the tech expert, was hard at work making the most of the old Xorethian technology. She had managed to get some of the communication systems working, though they were far from perfect. She had also begun repurposing their machines, adapting them for human use. "It's not pretty, but it'll work," she said as she soldered together parts of a broken robot. "I've been able to find a way to purify the water from the toxic lakes, and I'm trying to create a sustainable power source using their old tech." Maya watched her team with pride. Each one of them was putting in everything they had, using their unique skills to overcome the challenges they faced. The Exorethians had once believed in the superiority of their technology, but the humans were showing them something entirely different. They were showing the Xorethians that survival wasn't about perfection. It was about adaptability. It was about learning from failure and finding new ways to live, no matter how impossible it seemed. As they continued to work, Maya realized something important. This mission wasn't just about saving the Xorethians. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their technology. It was in their ability to face the worst of what the universe could throw at them and still rise. Humans could survive anything, even the end of a world. Maya smiled to herself. This planet may have been dying, but humanity wasn't done yet, and neither were the Xorethians. Not with humans showing them the way. Days turned into weeks, and the work on the Xorethian planet continued. The humans were making progress, but it was slow. Every small victory felt hard-earned. The planet was a tough opponent, and so were the Xorethians. While some of them were eager to learn, others were reluctant to trust the humans. They had relied so heavily on their advanced technology for centuries that the idea of returning to the basics felt like a step backward. Maya Kincaid understood their hesitation. It wasn't easy to let go of everything a civilization had believed in for so long. But she also knew the Xorethians had no choice. Their world was dying. They had to learn how to survive on their own, or they would be gone forever. One morning, Dr. Leo Price discovered something that gave them hope. As he ventured farther into the wilderness, he found a rare species of tree that seemed to be thriving despite the harsh conditions. It wasn't like the mutated plants they had seen before. This tree, with its deep green leaves and thick, sturdy trunk, seemed to be growing without the help of any technology. It was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that life could find a way even in the most unlikely places. Dr. Price returned to the camp with excitement in his eyes. "Maya, you need to see this," he said, holding up a sample of the tree's leaves. "This might be the key to restoring the ecosystem. It's been able to survive on its own, without any artificial help. If we can figure out how it does it, we can teach the Exorethians to do the same." Maya examined the leaves carefully. They were strong, healthy, and unlike anything she had seen on the planet before. "This is it," she said, her voice filled with determination. "If we can learn how this tree adapts to the conditions, we can teach the Exorethians how to live in harmony with their planet again." The team rallied around the discovery. Dr. Price and Kira Voss began studying the tree, trying to understand its unique properties. The Exorethians, still skeptical but desperate, joined in, offering their knowledge of the planet's history and ecology. They worked together, using both the human survival skills and Exorethians' ancient wisdom to uncover the secrets of the tree. Meanwhile, Alex Darnell continued his patrols, making sure the area remained safe from the dangerous creatures that roamed the wilderness. It was risky work, but Alex didn't hesitate. The planet was hostile, but he had faced far worse on Earth. He knew that the only way to save the Exorethians was to protect the survivors and give them the time they needed to learn how to thrive. As the weeks passed, the team's efforts began to show results. The Exorethians started to rebuild their homes, using the knowledge the humans had shared with them. They planted new crops, learned to work with the land instead of exploiting it, and began to restore the balance that had been lost so long ago. The humans, meanwhile, continued to teach them how to survive without relying on machines, how to adapt to the changing environment, and work with nature rather than against it. One evening, as Maya watched the Exorethians and humans working side by side, she felt a sense of pride. The planet wasn't saved yet, but it was on the right path. The Exorethians had started to change, and for the first time in a long while, there was hope. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but Maya knew one thing for sure. Humanity's spirit had shown them that even the most broken worlds could heal. All it took was the will to fight, to adapt, and to never give up. The days on the Exorethian planet grew longer, and the team's efforts were beginning to pay off. The Exorethians were learning. They were learning to work with the land instead of against it, to build in harmony with nature, and to live without relying on their dying technology. The humans, led by Maya Kinkid, had done what they came to do. They had shown the Exorethians a new way of life. But even as things began to improve, Maya knew they were not out of danger yet. The planet had been dying for so long that its systems were unstable. Radiation levels fluctuated. The weather, once predictable, had become wild and violent. And while the humans and Exorethians had made progress, they were far from safe. The team had no idea how much time they had before the planet's condition grew worse. One afternoon, Dr. Leo Price came to Maya with news. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he held up a monitor displaying unsettling data. "Maya," he said, his voice strained, "I've been tracking the environmental data, and it's not good. The radiation is spiking again, and the weather patterns are shifting rapidly. We're facing a massive storm, worse than anything we've seen so far." Maya frowned as she studied the readings. The storm was coming fast, and it wasn't just any storm. It was the kind of storm that could wipe out everything they had worked for. The Exorethian cities, already in ruins, wouldn't survive the intensity of the wind and rain. And the fragile ecosystem they had started to restore could be completely destroyed in a matter of hours. "We have to act now," Maya said, her voice steady but urgent. "Gather the team. We need to prepare for the worst." Within minutes, the human team was on the move. Alex Darnell, the experienced soldier, had already begun reinforcing the shelter and setting up defensive barriers to protect the Xorethians. "We can't stop the storm," he said, his tone grim, "but we can make sure we're ready when it hits." Kira Voss, the tech genius, worked on stabilizing the communication systems. "I'll try to get the satellite uplink working, but no promises. The storm will interfere with the signal." Dr. Price, the biologist, focused on securing the plants and trees they had been studying. He knew that the storm could undo months of progress in an instant. "I'll try to move the most important specimens to the underground storage. We can't let them be destroyed." As the storm approached, the atmosphere on the planet shifted. The winds began to pick up, howling through the cracks in the ground, and sending dust swirling through the air. The Xorethians watched in fear, their faces filled with dread. They had seen storms like this before, but never with the scale of destruction they were facing now. Maya stood at the edge of their camp, watching the sky darken as the storm approached. She could feel the tension in the air. The humans had shown the Xorethians how to survive, but this would be their greatest test yet. The storm wasn't just a test of their survival skills. It was a test of their will. Would they give up, or would they fight back? The wind howled louder, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Maya turned to her team, her eyes filled with determination. "This storm will not defeat us," she said. "We've come too far. We're human, and we don't back down." With that, the team braced themselves for the storm that was about to strike. They had faced impossible odds before, and they would face this one together. The storm hit with a roar, stronger than anything anyone had predicted. The wind screamed through the camp, snapping trees and tearing apart the barriers they had spent days building. The sky was dark, almost as if the planet itself was angry, and the rain came down in sheets, soaking everything in its path. Maya Kincaid stood at the center of the camp, her face grim but determined. The storm was chaos, but she had seen worse. The real test, she knew, wasn't just surviving the storm. It was how they would pull together when everything seemed to fall apart. She glanced around, making sure every member of her team was doing their part. Alex Darnell, the soldier, was leading the Xorethians into the shelters. He shouted orders, directing them into the safety of the underground bunkers they had prepared. "Move! Move! Keep your heads down." His voice was strong, cutting through the wind. The Xorethians had never faced a storm like this, and many of them were terrified. But Alex's steady hand helped keep them calm. He knew that in moments like these, fear could be their worst enemy. Meanwhile, Dr. Leo Price and Kira Voss were working together to secure their most important equipment. "We need to save as much data as we can," Kira said, holding a device to her chest as the wind threatened to knock her off her feet. "This is our only chance to rebuild." "I know," Dr. Price replied, his voice strained. "We're going to need all the research we've done. If we can't weather this storm, everything we've built could be gone in an instant." Despite the chaos, Maya stayed calm. She moved quickly, checking on each of her team members, making sure everyone had what they needed. There was no room for panic, not now. As the storm raged on, she found herself thinking about the Xorethians. These were people who had once believed they could control everything with their technology, but now they were learning a lesson the hard way. The planet didn't care about their machines, their cities, or their power. The storm was a reminder that nature was always stronger, always more unpredictable. The hours passed, and the storm only grew worse. The wind howled, tearing at the shelters and sending debris flying through the air. The underground bunkers had been designed to withstand the worst of conditions, but even they were shaking. The team huddled together, doing their best to stay safe while the storm raged above them. Suddenly, there was a loud crash. The earth beneath them trembled, and the lights flickered. Maya's heart raced, but she remained focused. "Everyone stay calm," she called out, her voice steady. "We're going to get through this. Stay together." She turned to Alex, who was keeping watch at the entrance of the shelter. His face was covered in dirt and sweat, but his eyes were sharp. "How's it looking out there?" she asked. "It's bad," Alex said, his jaw clenched. "The wind's tearing everything apart, but the shelters are holding. We just need to ride it out." Maya nodded, her gaze hardening. They had been through worse. Earth was a death world, a planet that had thrown everything it had at humanity. The storm might be fierce, but the humans and the Xorethians were tougher. They had learned from the past, and they would survive this. As the hours wore on, Maya knew one thing for sure. This storm might try to break them, but it would only make them stronger. They would rebuild, and they would teach the Xorethians to do the same. The storm finally began to subside after hours of relentless fury. The wind slowed, the rain turned to a light drizzle, and the darkness of the sky started to give way to the soft light of dawn. Maya Kincaid stood outside the shelter, her clothes soaked, her face streaked with dirt, but her eyes were filled with a new sense of determination. The storm had tested them all, but they had survived. The worst was over. As the team began to emerge from the safety of the bunkers, the damage became clear. The camp had taken a beating. Trees were uprooted, debris was scattered everywhere, and the structures they had built were partially destroyed. But the most important thing was that everyone was safe. The Xorethians, though shaken, had followed the humans' lead and kept calm. They were alive. Maya walked through the camp, checking on each of her team members. Alex Darnell was already organizing a group of Xorethians to begin cleaning up the wreckage. His calm demeanor had kept them all grounded, and now they were working together to rebuild. Dr. Leo Price was busy assessing the damage to their research materials, but he seemed optimistic. "It's not as bad as it looks," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "The data's intact. We can still work with it." Kira Voss, the tech expert, was already tinkering with a broken piece of equipment, trying to get it working again. "I'll get the comms back online," she said, her fingers flying across the controls. "It'll take some time, but we're not done yet." Maya nodded, grateful for her team's resilience. They had been through so much, and yet they had not faltered. But as she looked around at the damage, she realized that this wasn't just about survival. It was about rebuilding, about showing the Xorethians that no matter how many times the world tried to break them, they could stand up again. That was what the humans had learned on Earth. Every time their world had been torn apart, they found a way to put it back together. Now, they were teaching the Xorethians to do the same. Later that day, the Xorethians gathered around the campfire, their faces tired but hopeful. They had lost much, but they had learned something important. They no longer believed that technology alone could save them. They had seen how the humans had worked together to survive the storm, how they had adapted to the planet's harsh conditions, and they were starting to understand the lesson. Maya stood at the edge of the group, watching the Xorethians speak quietly among themselves. They were no longer the proud, arrogant people who had once believed their technology could solve all their problems. Now, they were humbler. Now, they were learning to live with the planet, not fight it. "Maya," Dr. Price said, approaching her with a smile, "it's starting to come together. I think they're finally getting it." Maya turned to him and smiled. "It's just the beginning, but it's a good start." As the sun set, painting the sky with brilliant colors, Maya felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt since they first landed on this broken world. The Xorethians had a long way to go, but they were no longer alone. They had learned the first step in rebuilding their world. They had to work together, adapt, and never give up. The humans had shown them the way. Maya looked up at the stars, knowing that Earth's legacy of survival and hope would live on in the hearts of the Xorethians. And as long as they remembered that lesson, their world would have a future. The planet was no longer dying. It was healing.